Welcome the gallery, councillors and staff to the April ordinary meeting. I'll open the meeting with the acknowledgement of country. Richmond Valley Council recognises the people of the Bundjalung Nations as custodians and traditional owners of this land, and we value and appreciate the continuing culture, connection to lands, their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region in the past, present and future. Mr General Manager, could you read the prayer, please?
Dear Lord, we meet to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognise our responsibility to the past and the future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I believe there's nil public access and question time, Mr General Manager.
Yeah, none received.
And apologies, I have an apology from Director Jones. Could I get a mover of that, please? Councillor Morrissey. Seconder. Councillor Lyons. No other staff apologies? I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. I'd just like to acknowledge that Acting Director Timms is in Director Jones's seat today, and also welcome Director Gator at our first meeting under his new role. Welcome. Where is? Oh, over here. Looking over there. And also acknowledge and welcome Director Zeller. Congratulations to both of you on your appointment, and I'm sure that it'll be a bonus to our council. Mayor a minute, there is nil. Confirmation of the minutes. Could I get a mover, please?
Move.
Councillor Simpson, seconder.
Second.
Councillor Morrissey. Any matters for the accuracy of those minutes? I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. Matters arising out of the minutes. Has any councillor got any matters arising? We'll move on then. Declarations of interest. Does any councillor have a declaration of interest? Mr General Manager, have you received any?
No, none received.
Thank you. Petitions nil. Notice of motions nil. There's Mayor's report on page 8. I'll move that. Can we get a second? Morrissey. Any questions?
Yes,
Councillor Morrissey.
Yes, Mr Mayor. The 12th of the Casino Art Group exhibition. How are the attendances for that, for those things they've been having there?
Sorry, could you say that again? The Casino Art exhibition? Yes, it was very low key because of COVID, and that's the way they planned it. It's on exhibition for a month or so. So, yes, very good, and the new art centre is very... it come up better than I thought it would. They've made a lot of room in the middle of it, and it's a lot bigger than what you think, and they have display boards that are actually on wheels, so they can wheel them and move them aside. So it's very, very good and well set out. So I'd encourage anyone to go and have a look at their exhibition.
And the other one was the new ambulance station announcement for Casino. What's the next stages for that? Is there any talk of where places to build it might be?
That's a very exciting announcement for our community, and not only the casino area, it's all up into the upper reaches of the Richmond and also into the Clarence. We know that Tabulum and all those areas rely on that, and even down the Lower River. Ambulances are very mobile now. Where you get a call, if they haven't got one in one town, they'll go to the other. So it's the old station has served our community well over 90 years, and I look forward to that coming to fruition. But your question is, the next stage will be public consultation on finding a site. And they have a few in mind, but they'll go to the community on that issue.
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Any other questions? I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Delegates' reports. We have a a report on page 9, 12.1. I'll move that. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Humphries. Councillors, that report is for the revised Future Water Project 2060, and as you can see by the minutes that are written there and what actually occurred at the meeting, there was a couple of foreshadowed motions and amendments. They failed, but in the end it was a unanimous vote to go ahead and display that because something needs to occur. And even though I would have liked to have seen some other scenarios included in that resolution, they were they were voted down. So at the end of the day, we've got to get on with this, and those other options will be now investigated, and the studies will be done. I'd also, I know the recommendation says, Mr. General Manager, that that you'll prepare a submission on from Richmond Valley on this strategy while the public consultation's on, but I'd really like it well spelled out in that disposal of land that's already been acquired for a future dam, if needed, that we oppose the sale of that, the disposal. I think that's a very a matter we really have to push, because if these other studies don't come up, like the groundwater or the desalination, if they're not viable and that land's gone, there'll be no water in our region for years to come. So I'd really like that pointed out, please.
Yep, we'll make sure that's addressed.
Any other councillors?
Just a question on your notice of motion changes there on number 5, that the poll question, that, well, why are they dead set against not having a poll question at the election?
Oh,
What's the reasoning?
They felt that the question was, and it wasn't the question. I just said that's the guidelines that it was loaded, and also that they believe the community consultation would be enough to get the feedback of what our region wants.
If we get further down the track and we're not happy with what's going on, what's to stop each individual council from having a poll question on at their?
Oh, you could, but you could. Have it at election time, but if you have a separate one, the cost it would be enormous, and even to do it at a poll at your own, at the local government elections, I think that would be come at a major cost.
Yeah.
Councillor Simpson?
So given we think this is a fairly pertinent issue for our local community, with the next phase of community consultation, how can members of the public place submissions? When's it open till? And can we include that in, say, our newsletter that we send out to all of our ratepayers?
I'll answer the first part of the question and hand over to the General Manager for the second part. The first part, I think it started on the 1st of April, runs for 8 weeks. And if you went on the Rouse website, I'm sure that it'll be on that. And also, Mr. General Manager, about putting that into our newsletter, could you?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. We'll include it in the community newsletter. We are also, for example, tomorrow there's the Business Chamber meeting in Evans Head, and I know that it's on the agenda there. So obviously that is the area of our valley that's potentially most affected, although it could potentially affect the whole valley into the future. So yeah, we'll get that to the community newsletter and other forums. I suppose following this meeting and this matter being on the agenda, we could follow through with a media release just to make sure our community is informed of the opportunity to have their say.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Humphrey, do you want to speak?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. With the Dodoon Dam, that whole option had its challenges. There was the environment, the cultural heritage and community acceptance. But looking at the report that went to Council at the last meeting, and it included a whole section from Hydrosphere Consulting, and they did that report in 2014. And in there was a section called Risks and Gaps, and they actually bore out desal and the indirect potable reuse and the groundwater. They had all of those, and they really picked out the positives and the negatives. There are negatives, risks and gaps in there galore, and they are all still around community acceptance and cultural heritage and environmental issues. The two things that they actually cannot provide that the Dunoon Dam does is the whole of life, the cost of the Dunoon Dam and the actual supply. It will supply quality drinking water beyond 2060. So it's absolutely imperative that, you know, we keep a safety net and that they don't dispose of the land.
Any other speakers? Just in closing then, what Councillor Humphries touched on is the cost of life. There are so many submissions coming to me personally, as well as going to Rouse, and they all say that the Dunoon Dam is the most costliest option. In the reports that's come to Council, whole of life it is the least costly. But there's putting that out there that it's the most costly option, it's not. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. Page 14, matters for determination. Has any councillors got any matters? Councillor Simpson?
16.4.
Sorry, what was that? 16.4? Any other councillors? Councillor, I'd like to 14.1, 15.1, 16.3 and 16.4 has been called. So, Mr General Manager, that leaves 14.2, 16.1, 16.2. That's it? Okay, can I get a mover for those, please? Councillor Morrissey. Councillor Lyons. Put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. I'll move the recommendation, but I'd like a couple of changes, Mr General Manager. I think we need to go beyond just writing to our local members. I also think, because we have received a lot of money out of these natural disasters, and I'd like to include that we also write to the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, the Premier and the Deputy Premier. If I could get that included into that in part 2, please.
Just give Kate a moment, she'll add that in.
Right.
Yep, that's good.
Yep. I have a couple of questions, Mr General Manager. One is, how will it affect our carryovers at the end of the financial year with all this new work coming in? Or is it too early to comment on that? And the other one is, I noticed that we have some council contributions towards these events. How do we fund those? Is there reserves for those? Or?
Yes, so the first answer to the first question about carryovers. Look, I suppose the reason that we brought this report forward was to give you both an update on our progress in responding to these 5 natural disasters, but also, as the report identifies, that I suppose the work and the resources that go into these responding to these events can have an impact on our capital program, but also the wet weather that we've encountered over the last 4 months since the start of December has certainly affected our ability to deliver a lot of projects. So I suppose the short answer is yes, there will likely be some carryovers. However, we are in the process of reviewing our capital program so that when we workshop with you our draft budget for next financial year, we can hopefully take a lot of that into account, and we will also do some budget adjustments in the March review, which will come to you at next month's council meeting. So, yeah, there will be either carryovers or impacts on our capital program, Given the scale of these disaster works, which are, we've claimed 14 million in works at this stage, but at the time of writing this report, we were still in the process of assessing the latest flood because some of the roads were still emerging from being under floodwaters. So our teams are very busy with this, a bit of a combined effort across our assets team and our infrastructure teams on the ground in assessing so that we can maximise the recovery process and minimise the impact on our bottom line, which takes me to the council contributions. So it's really like an excess on an insurance policy. You pay a little bit up front and then you get the benefit of the full return. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but I'm pretty sure that those contributions we're able to allocate from existing roads budgets where we may have been doing works on areas that were damaged. So we work our budgets around to make those payments. But I suppose when you look at $40 million worth of damage and we've had to pay 200,000. It's obviously a good program. It's one that we opted into the new arrangements under the Natural Disaster Recovery Program, and with the new arrangements, it's working really well. We've had some really good staff on the job who've, I suppose, maximised our returns from that program, and obviously the main aim is to get things back into shape as quickly as we can. But some of these, and that's the other thing that's probably impacted us here, is because we've had 5, you haven't finished fixing one and then you get another flood. And so you're in the middle of fixing a bridge or building a new bridge and then you get floods and side tracks get washed away. So and then the administration side of this is significant. And obviously, it's, when you're getting $14 million, the state and federal government rightly want accountability for that. So there's a lot of, I suppose, paperwork and photos and assessments that have to be done to justify it. So it's certainly impacted on our more routine programs, and so we're reviewing those, and we'll obviously have a conversation in the context of the draft budget, which we'll be doing in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Morrissey?
I'll second, Mr Mayor.
Sorry. Councillor Humphries.
Mr Mayor, commenting that, it must be devastating to be doing so much recovery work, and as from from March 2021, we're starting from scratch again. And I kind of likened it, the small scale, sort of personally, we had a couple of huge trees uprooted in the storm, and it's been 5 weeks of saturation in the yard. We can't get to it, apart from a little bit of electrical work to make the place safe. So I can't imagine, and then that compounded by the admin that's all around that. I would like to offer, and it's interesting that our fellow presenter from Cow FM's in the gallery, Greg Presbury, I would like to offer that if Cow FM could be invited, please, to the Get Ready programs. I feel that it's possible that we could be installing some phone-in facilities and have access to staff to the Cow FM organisation 24 hours a day. So if there's something we can do to work in with that, we'd be very willing and grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
No other speakers?
Sorry, just one other comment just to make. I think, again, just to acknowledge, and the good news being that the recovery manager role, which Kelly Moroney has been in, really good news that that's been extended by 12 months. Kelly's done a lot of great work on the ground and with our people in our community, well respected in that, and that's been extended for 12 months. But the aim will be for her time to shift from, I suppose the day-to-day tends to be sort of reactive to people's needs, but to try and move more to being proactive in setting up our community to be better prepared for whatever comes next. It's obviously highlighting that these things are going to keep happening, and if we can have our community better prepared for the next one, so that's going to be a bit of a shift for her role. So we're actually in the process of reviewing the recovery plan that we issued back in February, so reviewing and updating that, and we'll bring that to you as a draft in a future workshop, and that will guide her work over the next 12 months through to 30 June 2022.
Other speakers? Put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. 15.1 on page 20, I'll move that recommendation. I'd just like to...
Second. Oh, you want to do something
Yes,
else?
sorry. I'd just like to mention that often when we don't get really good returns sometimes, we always talk about that. But here it's swung around, so I just saw the positive that's coming out of it. I noticed on page 20 that we're 75% through the financial year, but it equates to now almost 85% of our proposed interest and returns. So it just, as we get in our reports every time, it highlights that they are long-term investments, and it can turn around, and the volatility of the financial sector just at present due to COVID and other disasters. So that's a good result, and I congratulate the staff on some decisions they've made investing it. But as we know, it could be up this month and down next month, but that's just the way things are in the financial sector currently. So, and I do note on top of page 21 that it's a statement there that some banking institutions not even accepting deposits at present. So could I get someone to make a comment on that, Mr. Gaynor?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, there are some institutions now, and it's typical, the ones that are offering the better rates for the term deposits are capping themselves at around 5 million. So yeah, we're at that limit with some of the banks. So some of those banks. So we're having to look elsewhere. But we are having conversations with our financial advisors about some other products that T Corp offer, which they're a long-term product as well, but the history on them seems to be pretty good. So we'll be bringing the investment policy back to council in the next couple of months because we'll need to make some changes to that if we're going to go down that path.
Thank you. Any other speakers? I'll put that motion, and all those in favour? Carried. 16.3. I'll move that recommendation. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Simpson. Councillors, I just wanted to ask a question on this, and we notice now that we've got the plan of management, and to me a lot of the work has been done on the paper side of things, to put it plainly. And the planning, with the master plan and everything, and I'd just like to know that what process now we go through to actually commencement some of the $9 million upgrade, and where do we go from here, please?
I might let Director Zeller answer that one. His gig, delivery.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, our council was actually the first one statewide to actually get a funding agreement executed under the Bushfire Local Economic Recovery Fund. So that happened about a month ago. So that was a good result for us. That's our $8.2 million grant under that program. So where we're at as far as delivery goes, we're currently out to an expression of interest for the full design, the detailed design of the master plan, so to speak. So that'll be another 2 or 3 weeks that's out for. So what that'll do is it'll narrow down the field of companies that can design that for us. So then we'll go out to tender for that. We found an expression of interest process works a lot better because it narrows the field. It makes those companies more interested in putting a bit of work into winning that tender. So that's what we're going down. Now, as far as on the ground delivery, we've decided to break off the sand track and the grass racetrack upgrade out of that tender because it's a specialist piece of work. and something that we can sort of get into relatively soon. So we'll go to design and construct on that separately. So the time frame on that is that we're looking to have that tender out in about 2 weeks. That'll be out for about a month. Obviously, we're trying to work that around proposed race meetings out at the race club. So the sand track will happen soon, and then the grass track will probably happen more after the October race meeting. And that's about a 3-month build there, so that'll be ready for the first race in March next year. So that's kind of where we're at.
Okay. And you mentioned 8.2, but there's, I said 9, but there's that extra $1 million from the state government to go on top of that too.
Yeah, that's right. That's a separate bit of funding. There's a little bit of double up on things that we'd already been funded for, but we can certainly find other priorities that we can put that towards to
At the showground.
at the showground. Absolutely.
Thank you. Any questions? Put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. 16.4, Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, I'll move the recommendation as written.
I'll second it. I'll second it.
Who seconded that? Councillor Lyons? Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, just wanted to mention, obviously, that this program, I believe, is imperative to our community. It's great to see that the General Manager is going to submit a response in regards to that. I think it's something that really needs to continue for the community. In the last 12 months, and this is just off the top of my head, there were fatalities at Kingscliff, Tweed, Wooleye and Port Macquarie from shark attacks. Obviously, we have a lot of tourists come to our area and utilise our beaches, and things like the smart drum lines and the drones do help people feel safer, and I think encourage people to continue to come here. And it would be an absolute loss if that was to stop. So just wanted to I guess, add some weight to the fact that I thought that this was a very important program, and we would like to see it continue into the future.
Could you just repeat the 4? There's Kingscliff, Tweed, Port Mac.
There was Kingscliff, Tweed, Wooleye, and Port Macquarie.
Yep.
Yep.
Councillor, would you just, I'd like a bit of wording changed in part 2 of that recommendation that you talked about. I think if we could write to the New South Wales Minister for Primary Industries and the DPI Shark Management Team providing feedback and then go on, I just think it'd be nice to write to the Minister and let him know how valuable this to our area, so it just doesn't get lost in the bureaucratic world.
Yeah, I'm happy for that change to be made.
Did you want to say anything else, Councillor? Any other councillors? Right. All right, then I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. (17.1) on page 36. Could I get a mover, please, for matters for information? Councillor Morrissey, seconder. Councillor Lyons. Has any councillor got any matters they'd like to discuss from matters for information? No. Councillors, on page 39, I'd just like to mention that the customer service contact centre data, and I think they're pretty impressive figures. Almost 90% of calls are answered within 20 seconds, and the average time each caller spends in the queue is 13.6 seconds, and the percentage of rate of calls abandoned was at less than 1%. I believe that's very, very good figures, and we all know sometimes we can get held up on phones when we make other calls to organisations and government departments. So I'd just like that passed on to the staff there, please. I think they're doing an outstanding job, and that's a great result for Richmond Valley Council. Councillor Morrissey, nothing? No one else? I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Onto the back page, aren't we? Back page, yep. Yeah, questions on notice. There's nil. I think that question was in writing last week. Last meeting was answered. Any questions for the next meeting in writing? Nil. Matters referred to closed council. I need a motion to go into closed.
Moved.
Second.
Is that you, Councillor? And Humphreys, yep. Mr General Manager, has been any written Mr General Manager, has been any written representation made regarding this meeting going to closed council?
No, nothing received.
Are there any verbal representations from the members of the gallery? Nil. I'll put that motion then, councillors. All those in favour? Carried. Mr General Manager, could you read the resolutions of closed council, please?
Okay, for item 20.1, which is the tender for the construction of the shared pathway, Bruxton Highway, and replacement of existing pathway on Summerland Way. The resolution was that council awards the tender for the construction of the casino shared pathway project on the Bruxton Highway and Centre Street to NRC Group P2I Ltd at the tendered rate of $309,983 exclusive of GST, and that the General Manager be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms and conditions of any contract or agreement, including the extension of the scope of works in line with the content of this report and the available budget, and affixing the seal of council where necessary. For item 20.2, which was again a tender, rectification and underpinning at Casino Raw Water Plant. Council resolved to award the tender to Greg Clark Building, Pty Ltd, for rectification and underpinning at Casino Raw Water Plant at the tendered rate of $127,700 exclusive of GST. Approves an additional budget allocation of $50,130 from the Water Fund Reserve for certification and support works, and authorises the General Manager to enter into and endorse relevant contracts and documents, including affixing the seal of council where appropriate, generally in accordance with the details contained within this report. And for item 20.3, which is a tender for the design and construct of a bridge, Sandy Creek number 1 on Coraki Ellen Gowan Road. Council resolved to award the tender for the design and construction of Sandy Creek number 1 bridge, Coraki, to Oz Wide Bridge Rail and Civil, Pty Ltd, at the assessed tendered rate of $418,000. That's inclusive of GST, and authorises the General Manager to enter into and endorse relevant contracts and documents, including affixing the seal of council where appropriate, generally in accordance with the details contained within this report. That's the matters in closed council.
Thank you. That closes the meeting. Thank you, gallery, councillors, staff for attending, and for you out there watching online, thank you for taking the time to view this council meeting. That closes the meeting. Thank you very much.